Welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by White Stallion Ranch and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. As a cutting horse trainer and competitor, personal performance coach, and clinician, Barbra Schulte has learned much about how to deal with some of life's toughest challenges. No surprise that she was named an honoree in the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame. She joins the Cowboys to share her story and some of the lessons she's learned.
Morning, Alan. We've done some things together, and we often hear about some of your favorite horses. Some of those were cutting horses.
Yeah. Well, anybody that's done much horsebacking has their favorite horse, and mine all had to do with working cattle because that's what we did. But I would real quick, I really want to hear from Barbara, but I would tell one quick story. My very favorite of all was the horse that I owned the mare and then raised the colt and then took him and broke him. And he just ended up to be an all-around really good horse. And he had this wonderful saddle gait, fast walk that was a pleasure to ride. And when you were working cattle with him, you just show him a pair and he knew to cut them out. And that was as fun as I've ever had horseback, is just sit there and let the horse do the work and know that you're a team. And so I've had some of the good days in my life working cattle, horseback. So I'm thrilled to have Barbara as a guest today because I think what we're going to find out, she trains cutting horses and,
well, she spent 30 years training cutting horses, and she's done much more than that, of course. She's got a big resume here. She's a high-performance coach. She's author of 4 books, publisher of video blogs, online programs. She's a clinician, a speaker, an honoree in the National Cowgirl Hall of Fame. As a national cutting horse competitor, and we're going to get her to explain this, she was the first woman to win 2 legs of cutting's Triple Crown. She was awarded the National Female Equestrian of the Year. That's a pretty broad award right there. Year award by the American Quarter Horse Association, which is the biggest breed registry in the world, and the Women's Sports Foundation. 2020, Barbara received the American Horse Publications Equine Industry Award, and this was for her positive impact across the horse industry. In 2021, she received the Western Horseman, of course, a longtime esteemed magazine, and the Art of the Cowgirls Women of the West Award. Barbara is the CEO of the Center for Equestrian Performance, and she lives with her husband Tom and their animal friends in Brenham, Texas. So welcome, Barbara.
Hey, thank you. I'm delighted to be with you guys and with your audience, and looking forward to visiting with you.
Well, I'm intimidated by having somebody with a list with a background as big as yours. I'm thinking we ought to just sit here and let you teach us things that you know.
Don't be scared. It's okay. No problem.
Well, it's fun to have you on the other end, and so I'm tickled to hear what you have to say.
Well, thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
What got you into horseback? What got you into the cowboy world?
Well, I grew up on they call them farms in Illinois, but really my parents' place was a ranch, and we had 400 to 500 horses. And the marketing arm of the buy, sell, and trade business was we kids had a string of horses that we would improve, and we would take them to local shows, and the idea was to not come home with them. And so that's how I grew up. And my dad's favorite favorite horse event was cutting horses. He loved cutting horses. So besides doing, Western pleasure and horsemanship and showmanship at halter and those classes, I grew up cutting. So that's how I got into it.
Was it hard for you to turn loose of your favorite horse when you had that kind of a business? It's easy to fall in love with a horse.
Hey, I have to tell you, this probably might sound strange, but I'm going to take a risk here. When I was growing up, the business model was so much about turning horses over. Dad, that's how first he had mules, and then he, would get really difficult horses, and he'd improve them and sell them and trade until he built it up to 400 to 500 horses. And so that's what we did. And so I fell in love with a few, but I always knew that they wouldn't stick around. So I think that I didn't allow myself to do that too much. And actually, it wasn't until, and I always loved horses, training them. Later I became a professional trainer. I mean, I loved horses, and, but I just, they were always moving, clients bringing horses in and out, and, some of the horses we raised. But my background and history is a little bit different than people. And a little bit later in my life, when I had some tragedies, it was the horses I went to just to be with them. So it's just an interesting thing about the horses. I've gained an appreciation. That's a long-winded answer to say I've gained an appreciation for the awesomeness of the horse and all the healing and all the joy and that they give to so many. But as a youngster, I was working, and we were buying and selling.
Well, and it must have been, first of all, you had the right expectations going in. You knew that it was business, and I'm sure that there was some adventure and satisfaction of being successful. And of course, the horses were probably going off to good places. Yes.
Well, one of the things is that Dad, who was he was man of the, obviously, but the man of the business, the front of the business, and the one who did all of the deals. And my mom did took care of the kids, and she did the bookkeeping. But Dad, because he was such a horseman, he always taught us, and he was tough. He had high expectations. He expected us to do well. And there's two sides of that coin, because I was a little bit intimidated by Dad and those expectations. But on the other side of it, I grew up expecting to do well. And so that, I think, has served me well in other things that I have taken on in my life. But we grew up riding, training, and showing for the purpose of marketing horses.
And how many of you kids were riding, training, and selling horses?
Yeah, there are 5 of us, 4 girls and a boy. Dad, was disappointed at the time, every time another girl was born. And the second to the last one is a boy.
Well, so when somebody would come to your place, you'd be disappointed if they didn't leave there with a horse. Is that how it worked?
Absolutely. And, they would see Dad, and they'd pull up, and they would say what they wanted, and we'd have 10 to 15 to choose from. And depending on whose string the horse was in, when that's the person that showed them the horse, there was probably 3 or 4 different cowboys that worked there also, and including someone that just clipped the horses and doctored them. And so it was quite an operation, very unique operation.
Well, you had a lot of corral just to take care of 400 horses. You had to have them scattered a lot.
Yes, but I think Dad made he ground his own feed. And I think that there was someone who only did feeding. So by the time they started in the morning, it was almost time to start again in the afternoon. There wasn't much time in between.
Were they AQHA horses or quarter types or just ranch horses or a mix?
Well, they were mainly quarter horses, mainly AQHA horses. Mm-hmm. But he was not limited to that. But I would say that the second category would be paints. Mm. And, every once in a while we got in a thoroughbred or something like that. There was a track not far down the road, but it was mainly quarter horses, registered quarter horses. Although he had a pen in the pasture, we had a 100-stall main barn and then a 20-stall cutting horse barn. And then we had about 6 or 8 pastures with different, like one was called a grade gelding pasture, which meant that those horses weren't registered. And Dad would come to Texas and bring a semi truck and go to the 4-6s and the King Ranch and come home with a semi load of horses.
Mostly broken or unbroken, or what kind of horses? No. When he unloaded them? What did they look like?
Oh, they were mostly they had been been ridden a lot, and they would back up the semi to the loading chute and they'd be unloaded and they'd come down the ramp and Dad would sort them in and by, he had this photographic memory that none of his children got, unfortunately. And,
he'd know the history of each horse.
He would know the history of each horse. He knew how they rode, and there would be people lined up waiting for those truckloads of horses. And, maybe a quarter or a third of them left that day.
No kidding.
And what era was this? What years did this giant horse operation go?
Yes, I would say that Dad was building it certainly at the end of the 1940s, and it was going full throttle with the 100+ horses by like 1960, maybe.
So when a truckload would arrive and they'd start unloading, would he say, okay, this one's yours, Barbara, and away you'd go? Is that how it worked?
Well, we didn't, the kids, or at least I didn't, the girls, didn't get so much that the horses that came from Texas. He also did a lot of business in Canada and a lot of business in Texas. And because the business was not raising horses, but buying and selling and trading, he would get different horses in on trades, and also he would take horses to auctions, and then he would buy, like they would wait for the sales to start for Dad to get there if he was late for some reason, because he was the main buyer at like the sales in Arkansas and Clovis, New Mexico, and around. And so Dad would hand pick the higher end of the horses. By higher, I just mean the more trained horses for us kids.
And just in the period of time that you were involved, what was ordinary horse selling for? And because this was a business, but still, the difference in price is staggering. So, and then for a more tuned up young horse, give us just a sense of what the ranges were.
Boy, that's a great question. I was on the work detail part of it, and I remember Dad, he didn't have a computer, and sitting there with his notebook and pencil with the column of, what he bought it for. And, that's how he kept his own like profit and loss. But, I can remember hearing like prices of the grade horses being like 500 to 1,000. And I'm not sure about the cutting horses. I can only imagine that it depended upon their quality, but I would say maybe 7,500 to 15,000. 15,000 being a really top horse. I do remember he imported a Dock Bar stallion from Australia.
Huh.
I think that horse was maybe, or maybe he bought it here and exported it. I don't know. I can't remember. But I think that horse is maybe, like 50,000 or something. And that was like, just, an amazing price then. But that's a great question. And that would be a good one for me to ask my siblings because I'm not really positive about that. But
Would you have buyers come almost every day to your property and be looking or have horses to sell? Or, was
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
Maybe more than one, huh?
Yes. Dad had his office. So it was a little metal building with huge windows. And, he could see out, but people couldn't see in. And off of that was a little living room, like with a little TV or whatever. It was like a waiting room. People would like wait to come in and see Dad. It was really an amazing operation.
Wow. Was it mostly cash? Would they walk in with greenbacks and leave with a horse or vice versa?
Well, my mom is no longer with us either, but she would probably have stories to tell about that because I can remember hearing her talk about so-and-so's check wasn't any good. This was just like hearing it, just walking through the room. But Dad also did, he would let you buy on time. He, also did that. You could finance a horse with him.
A horse trader banker. I love it.
That's right. Exactly. And here's the other thing that's really cool. If you went and bought a horse and then you got it home and you decided that you didn't like it, you just bring it back. And
money back guarantee.
Could always, no.
Trade back, probably.
You could bring it back and you could trade it.
Yeah.
But of course, because you had probably messed it up, it wasn't worth quite as much. It's like driving the car off the lot at a car dealer. So, but you could bring it back and trade it in.
Yeah, we had a trader that was like that for years, and it sure made horse buying a little easier. I'm reading that Alan and I are both graduates of University of Arizona here in Tucson, and is it correct you spent some time there too?
Yes, I did. Well, I not really at the university, but let me digress a little bit. I way fast forward to what we were just talking about, and I got my master's degree in speech pathology and audiology, and I did my internship, and then I was hired to be a speech pathologist at the Arizona State School. At that time, they called it the School for the Deaf and Blind. I don't know what they currently call it, but I was hired as a speech I can't even say the word speech pathologist to teach the teachers of the deaf, of the hearing impaired, how to teach them speech by reading their audiogram. In other words, like, there's a picture of everybody's hearing is different, and the printout of that, of their hearing capabilities by volume and pitch is on an audiogram. And so if you understand speech science, which was my field, I could educate the teachers how to read the audiogram, and then they knew if they could teach speech by getting close to their ear and talking into their ear, because the best way to learn speech is just by hearing it. It's just how we're wired. Or reading lips, or, other ways. And then I also taught that method to upcoming teachers of the hearing impaired at the University of Arizona. So that's that connection.
Okay. How long were you here in Tucson?
Well, Tucson, by the way, I love Tucson. I really do love Tucson. And I wouldn't mind if we were still living there. That's where we first moved, the very first year that we were married. So that was like in the fall of '79, and that's when I was doing my internship and doing that teaching. And we were there for maybe a year and a half is all. And then my husband got me back into the cutting horses because he thought it looked like fun and wanted to know if I knew how to do it. So I took a little sabbatical after the intensive nature of, all the work we did, at the ranch. I just needed to take a little break. And then I met my husband. He goes, "Oh, let's get back into this." And so I said, okay. And then we moved to Washington State.
Okay. Well, we're going to take a break, and this is one of my favorite breaks. This is Alan's and this is the point in our podcast monthly where we're going to get an update on the features and articles in this month's True West magazine. And I know it's our favorite magazine about the West. So that's upcoming, and we'll be back after that.
Well, once again, you'll learn more here by accident than most places by design. And we thank you for listening to the Cowboy Up podcast. And this is not just a station break. This is where we have something that will really make your Western adventure even more fun. True West Magazine is the magazine. And Stuart, you're the editor, but let me tell you, I just read through your January 70th anniversary issue, and that is a classic work of art.
Well, Stan, thank you very much. We worked really hard on that. We felt that we really had some great contributions from many of our writers who have been working for us and writing for us for many years, and it really is a real gem. We're very proud of that issue, and in our 70th anniversary, we're going to continue producing on a monthly basis really outstanding photo essays that look back at our coverage of our top topics, and we are digging hard in our archives and working with different archives across the country to bring more of the best photography into True West Magazine, which has been really a foundation of the publication since it started in 1953. And for many of us who grew up with Life magazine and Look magazine, we really try to bring our readers the best in historical photography. And so I look forward to hearing from your listeners, and we're working on the April issue right now, and we're going to have a big portfolio on cowboy roundup and working cowboy photography. So,
well, it was truly jaw-dropping, let me tell you. Yeah, oh my goodness, look at that. It really was.
Thank you very much, Stan. And in the February-March issue is a cover story. Casey Affleck is on the cover as Robert Ford, and the headline is "The Day Jesse James Died: New Evidence Uncovered," and by Mark Lee Gardner, the noted and award-winning author and biographer of Jesse James, and of course Billy the Kid, and he's just and Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders. Mark Lee Gardner is really one of the outstanding working Western writers right now in the field. And so we had received a tip on some new evidence from a scholar in England. And so we asked Mark to take a look into this in the last hours of Jesse James' life, and it kind of upended some of the belief in what was motivating the Ford boys to ambush and kill Jesse James. And so our readers, I think, were really going to enjoy a deep dive in that. And then one of our longtime contributors, Terry Delbane, he's done a big feature on James Beckworth. So if our listeners really enjoy reading about mountain men, James Beckworth is someone that really, I think, gets overlooked, but really one of the most interesting characters, and one of the few African-American mountain men who served from the earliest days of Ashley's 100 and to the later in life when he was leading pioneers up and over the Sierra Nevadas, developing safer trails. And so that's a really good feature.
So we even have Buffalo mountain men, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. He actually, at some point, decided not to move back to St. Louis and lived with the Crow Indian tribe for a while and rose in the ranks of leadership and actually lived full time out in the West with with the Crows. And so that's a great feature. And then it's also our top 10 town issue. And Tombstone is made it our number one town this year. But I think people will discover who are starting to plan their travels for 2023 that this is a great issue to have, because we really map out all across the different regions of the West, not only our top 10 towns, and but also smaller communities across the West that we think people should take the time to visit. And so here in Arizona, Prescott, Arizona was number 3 this year. They're one of our favorites. And I'd love to talk to you more about our top 10 towns of the West.
Well, we will do that sometime. And he got it right. He said Prescott.
That's right.
Which is the mark that you know what you're talking about to those people there, right?
That's exactly right. And I live in the town of Prescott, and we also learned that it's our downtown Prescott. It's the plaza, not a square. So, 2 things to know when visiting Prescott: how to pronounce it and what to call the Yavapai County Courthouse Plaza.
Very good.
And
well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, now again, tell people how to subscribe. Not just go buy it. How to subscribe, and until then, go buy it. All right? Tell them how to do that, Stuart.
TrueWestMagazine.com, and if they want back issues like the January issue, if it's not on the newsstand anywhere, that's the best place to get it. And TrueWestMagazine.com will not only lead them into a way to subscribe, but there's an option to subscribe with the archive so that you can read 70 years of True West Magazine online. And also, we've got a great store with all of Bob Bosbell's great books, as well as an excellent A Little Prejudice travel book for planning your travels across the West.
It's time to do that. Go west, young man, young woman, old man, everybody. It's time to go west, where hope is still alive.
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you much, Stuart. Till next time, bye for now.
Thank you, Stan. Happy trails.
Well, Barbara, I guess you got back into horses. Tell us how that circled back around. We were talking about the career at the school here.
Yes. Well, so I was immersed in the family business through high school. And then I went to college in Illinois, and then later went to graduate school in Washington State and got a master's degree in speech pathology and audiology. I think I've always just liked communication. And my first internship, and then it turned into a job, was at the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind. And I don't know I think it's renamed since that time. But anyway, so I did my internship there. And during that time, I was hired by the University of Arizona to teach teachers. I was teaching teachers of the hearing impaired, up and coming teachers of the hearing impaired, how to help deaf and really most quote unquote deaf people have some degree of hearing. It's obviously not very much, but anything from nothing, which is a tiny percentage, to up the scale to just not being able to hear very well, is not that uncommon. And so I taught teachers, the deaf, how to read the visual report, the audiogram, and how to use that information so they knew how to teach speech to these hearing impaired kids. So that's what I did in Tucson. And also that was the first year of my marriage. And Tom, I'm trying to think, the Canyon, one of those places out in the desert, he worked at a school that, helped some of the troubled kids in high school. So that's what we did the first year of our marriage. And then Tom had seen, of course, how I grew up and what I did. And he kept talking to me about cutting horses. And he said, do you know how to do that? And I said, well, yeah, I, did it my whole life. And so he said, well, let's do it. Let's get back into it. So it was because of him that I got back into doing it. Plus, I didn't really like being in an office and keeping data, like I had to write down every sound one of the kids said, and that wasn't really my cup of tea in a little tiny office with no windows. So that sounded good to me. So that's how I got back.
Well, and since we're on cutting, in your lengthy resume, you won the first two headers of the Triple Crown. Tell us, what is the Triple Crown in the cutting horse world?
Yes. The Triple Crown is, the first one is the Futurity, which is for 3-year-old horses. And in the National Cutting Horse Association, those horses can never have been shown, in a regular competition, judged and have, for prize money or like in any kind of competition. So it's always been like the debutante ball, the coming out party. It's really the most prestigious of all of the cutting horse events. Unfortunately, I have not won that one. I would like to. I've become very close to winning, but have not. Then the next one in the spring is called the Super Stakes, and I won the Super Stakes Classic, which is for 5- and 6-year-old horses. And then the third leg is called the NCHA Derby, which is in the summer, and I won the 4-year-old division of that.
Well, looking at your background, you were taking horses and moving them up a notch and then selling them and all that. Apparently at this stage, you weren't necessarily trading horses every week. You probably had some of your favorites that you rode a lot to win that much.
Oh, yes. I definitely fell in love with some of those horses. Or, it's just like people. You like everyone, but there are certain people that you just really hit it off with and you really connect with. And one of my favorite horses was a horse named Freckles, son of a doc. And from the time he was in the Futurity through his 6-year-old year, the end of that, that's called the aged events for the ages of horses. I went to every aged event throughout the country with that horse and never missed a finals on him. And every time I would walk by his stall or maybe stop and, was talking to someone, he'd always go, He'd always talk to me in this really low, sweet language that he had. I just love that horse. Very special to me.
I see here in our notes that the book Mental Toughness in Sports had an impact on you. Is that something we can talk about?
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite topics. Well, when I first started training professionally and entering national competitions, I noticed that it wasn't always the person with the best horse who won, but it was repeatedly, it was like a handful of riders were the ones that either won it or in the top 5. And so I wanted to understand what was going on. And that led me to a place called the Human Performance Institute in Orlando, Florida, where they train Olympic and professional athletes. And I learned about the research of how they teach Olympic and professional athletes how to perform under pressure, because Dr. Jim Lair and that particular institute, they were doing the research. And I hit it off with those guys, the head there, when I went there just as a student. And they asked if I wanted to be certified as a performance coach and for the equestrian world. And I jumped on that and was trained for a number of years. And that training, I would say that has been the most impactful part of my life. That, Dr. Lair specifically, and the research and the mindset, because it's a way of seeing the world, it's the way of processing the world. And while it is for competition under pressure, the idea being that you want to do the very best that is in your wheelhouse, in your capability, at the top of your potential when it matters in a major competition, like the Olympics, for example. And that's when I won, actually. I started winning, not just placing, but winning after I went there. And then I was certified to teach and coach. And it impacted my life in such a powerful and positive way. And I still can't really get enough of it. I mean, it's interesting to me, not just in competition, but just in life, how we can live happy, productive, meaningful, fulfilled lives, both under pressure and, every day. And so that's what I do now. I teach online courses for equestrians, and like a number of them throughout the year. And I also teach about cutting and about cattle sports, and cattle sports have so expanded, over time. They've really erupted, especially with just recently, like with Yellowstone. So it's fun. I love what I do, and I just love studying about, how we can be more productive and happier and all at the same time, and healthier, not having, thinking of work as tied to a negative kind of stress, but as a true passion and how to manage that.
So Barbara, just to summarize, so I understand, did the book Mental Toughness in Sports lead you to the Human Performance Institute, which is where you ended up?
Yes, sorry, that's the question.
But no, I mean, I just want to understand. So
yes, well, no, actually, the way that I got there was because my sister heard Dr. Lair interviewed, and she was driving across the country. She was, at the time, was also in the horse business, and she knew that I liked that sort of thing. So she told me about him, and then I gathered about 5 or 6 people, and we went down there. And, before we went there, I read that book. And so that book was such a manual of such very specific kinds of tools and tips and that sort of thing. And so that all kind of happened around the same time.
Would you call that book timeless? Is that something people should read today?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely a timeless book. Yes. And Dr. Lair, in fact, I just interviewed him last night for one of my courses. I love to do that within my courses because it's just a treat, to talk to extraordinary people on the topic that we're talking about. And he has evolved in his career to not only be performance under pressure and competitive, but also, how to be more connected to what you want and to what your values and your goals, and aligning all that so that you live, like I was just saying, very productive, happy or that we all do lives, again, that are aligned with our values, because, we all grow up with this voice in our head that tells us we're not enough, or our culture tells us we're not enough, or we should be doing more, we should be doing something different. Then we get real sidetracked, and it's easy to get kind of confused and kind of go in circles or be unhappy, and his work now is just, again, really extraordinary.
And you talk about how it's teaching people how to, I think you said, be the best they can be within their own wheelhouse and do it when it matters. I think I'm summarizing you correctly.
Yeah, correct.
But
well, that's the competitive under pressure part.
But I guess so. And you've made it very clear that beyond, for you, cutting, or for somebody else, Olympic competition, it has a general life impact. But if we were going to give a 30-second commercial to people listening, why they should do it, whether it's in your equine world or a different one, what does it do for you? How does it get you to a point where you're better in competition or better in life?
Well, because, first of all, we are never taught this information in schools, or, most of our parents don't know, like they've never been trained in it. So there are so many ways of thinking and being and doing things that actually subvert our potential. And so just by learning, what the goal is of this, which is to have clarity about either what we want in our lives or what we want to do under pressure, and knowing how to align our thoughts, our emotions, our body, it just makes a dramatic difference. It's just incredible. Like, I could shout it off the rooftops. And, I went from doing pretty well. I mean, I was making finals to winning in the cutting horse world at that time. And, when our son passed away, I could take a lot of those same principles in just ways of thinking, or the recovery, the pause part, different. And it just helped me navigate life. And we're never taught, and in fact, how our culture is, or some of the things our parents have taught us or said to us, actually take us in the opposite direction.
Well, Barbara, so, I mean, if they see this as something that could help them, I saw you had a couple of retreats that I know, VR in California, and the Sea Lazy U in Colorado, a couple of ranches I know. And so there's opportunity. Besides, I think I saw you've done some TED Talks, and you've got some videos and some books. So there's opportunity. But if they want to get in person a retreat with you, that's available. Yes.
And they can go to my website, Barbra, and it's Barbra. I always tease because I say Barbra Streisand named herself after me, but actually the opposite is true. When I was a little girl, I saw how she spelled her name, and I thought it was really cool, so I changed my name. I just started writing it the way I wanted it to be. Dad's going, what? Anyway, so it's Barbra, Barbra Schulte, SCHULTE.com. And at the top, there's, I have a Sunday email that I send out that has a little, it's a free video, a little tip, a little strategy. And then when you sign up for that, then I notify people when I have these free master classes that when I have a new course coming out that gives us a lot of incredible information for free, and then leads, if people want to go deeper, they can. And there's a lot of content in that weekly video. So I think, and my books and all of that are there as well.
Well, and we'll just circle back to that, but we have a note here that your son Zach deeply inspired you, and maybe we could hear about that.
Sure. Well, actually, his name was Zane.
Zane, no, I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. He was 16 when he passed away from bone cancer. And from the time he was diagnosed till his passing was a year. And he was always an awesome kid, great in school and great athlete, loved sports. He wasn't a horse kid so much, but loved sports. And when that year that we spent from his diagnosis till he went on, I always like to think of it as went on to a different life. I got to spend 18 weeks with him in the hospital at MD Anderson because of treatments and surgeries and that sort of thing. And I never knew that Zane was so wise. Somebody asked him if he was sad or, why he got cancer. And he said, well, why wouldn't I? A lot of people get cancer and, I can do this. And his goal was to make the doctors, the other kids laugh. There was a scheduling problem in the hospital because all the kids wanted to be there when Zane was there because he was so warm and friendly. And,
wow.
He never skipped a beat with being an honor student, and there were no special favors. And he called everybody. He was the first one to get a truck when he turned 16. He was, so he called people from his hospital bed, his friends, and say, I'm going to be home. Let's do whatever. And, he just never felt sorry for himself ever. I mean, it was like, let's do this. Let's get it done. He had his leg amputated, in the last few months. And he was just so, he was just like, it was like, oh my gosh, God, I didn't realize that you gave me this extraordinary person. I mean, he really was extraordinary. So, I mean, everybody's child was extraordinary. I understand that. But he was very inspirational. So.
How has that affected your teaching, going through that? Can you talk on that for a minute?
Sure. Well, I would say I think I've always been a pretty empathic kind of person. But, going through that, I didn't really have anger or a lot of sadness, but not angry or at God or any of that. But I just thought, I'm here. Zane's not here anymore, but I'm here. So obviously I have work to do. And I'm going to do a good job. And I think my number one job is to help people really realize how extraordinary they are and help them experience that their joy, their version of joy in their life. And Zane taught me that. And the other thing is that because of seeing what he went through and also experiencing it as a parent, it's like there's nothing that it seems like now that could happen that would be as hard as that. So, and if Zane did what he did, then I certainly can do what I have to do. So it's made, I guess it made less complaining and more optimistic. And I just think more compassionate. You can't really go through something that's that deeply painful without it having an effect. And I just decided that I was going to find the gifts in it. I wrote a little book called Healing Thoughts on Lost Grief and Horses, and talked about the gifts that I had from going through that experience, and also the impact that horses, in the beginning I said that I was connected to horses, but I had an experience that really connected me. It wasn't until Zane passed that all those years in my life that I understood how healing horses are and this whole other side of them that has nothing to do with if they can work a cow or change leads or any of that. So I think that has made me more connected to my students. I understand that how much they love their horses, and that's really their reason why they want to do well and all the other stuff. But it's because of the joy the horse brings.
Are most of your students or all of your students horse people, or do you have students from, other walks of life?
No, I would say most of them. I have over time, had some golfers and that sort of thing. But I would say that my students are mostly, or they are predominantly horse people.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we just want to finish up because we've gone over time as we do. I'm 100% confident that your story is going to have grabbed some folks that are horse people like you and understand that almost unique power that horses have with people, and are going to want to learn more. And they can do that at www.barbra, BARBRA, Schulte, SCHULTE.com. Did I get that right, Barbara?
Yes, you did.
And that's the place they can go to get all this stuff. And your website, I've been to it. There's a lot there, and there's a variety of opportunities, as you described already, where people can get on the free newsletter, or they can meet you in person. And I know, Julie Goodnight used to do her show here at White Stallion, and I know you've worked with her on a book that turned into a training program, and we need to talk about National Cowgirl Hall of Fame that honored you. We've got a whole nother show, so we got to get you out to Tucson. You like Tucson, so
I love Tucson.
Yes.
Well, we want you back here.
Okay, all righty.
Thank you so much. It's been really impactful to me to hear what you've had to say. So thank you from my heart.
Thank you. Hey, and thank you for inviting me. And I want to thank the listeners, and I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Well, we thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you so much, gentlemen and Barbara. Fascinating story. All the best and blessings to you. And now, right now, he says he's not a salesman, but today he's going to do a little bit of selling. So Russell has a request for you from him. Let's hear what he has to say.
Alan, it was kind of a big deal to us. I don't know when it was. I should know. It's something like 2019. White Stallion Ranch won the USA Today #1 spot in the 10 best family vacations in the U.S. And
wow.
And we were really proud to be nominated because we were in this big, heavy company, and we were pretty proud to even be in the same sentence. And then we got the top spot, and we thank our guests for that because they went out and did it.
They're the ones that voted it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because A, you got to get nominated, and then B, you got to have the folks go vote for you. And so we're going to ask them to do it again. We're up for the 10 best USA Today, of course, nationwide newspaper. And it's this time they've dude ranching's gotten important enough to them. They've got a dude ranch category. And so White Stallion Ranch and Rancho de la Osa, our ranch on the border that we're involved in, that we're owners of, are both up for best dude ranch in America. And so you go to the USA Today 10 best, and you go to the dude ranch category, and you vote for hopefully one of those two. And if you've been to one, and you think we should win that award, we'd love it if you'd go and do that. You can do it once a day. You know, Alan, I think I've told this story before, but it just, as I listened to Barbara talk about Zane, it struck me because Zane took it all somehow in a way that he maintained his positive attitude, and he wasn't angry, and she wasn't angry. They were sad, obviously. And I thought of this woman. I read her journey through cancer, and she was talking about how angry she was and how she couldn't understand what she'd done that inspired God to inflict cancer on her. And she said after the beginnings of this journey, this woman speaking, she went for her first chemo treatment, and she sat down in the recliner and looked across, and the other side of the wall of the room, the wall had in big letters, "Life isn't fair." And she said that changed everything for her.
Wow.
And she said, from that point on, I realized it just happened. And I hadn't earned it, and nobody was angry at me. It just happened. And somehow Zane, at 16 years old, knew that. And Barbara also. And I think that was a gift for both of them.
And a gift for her to share it with us.
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for joining us today. A hats off to Stan Husted's production team and to True West Magazine. Next week, Pulitzer Prize finalist Ted Conover joins us to talk about his fascinating new book, Cheap Land, Colorado, his story about living off the grid for a year. The New Yorker named it one of the best books of 2022. Plan to tune in. Until then, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to stand tall and ride safe.